Hello all, welcome back. So what I wanted to remind you about before we even start solving for x are the four properties. So when it says opposite sides are congruent and opposite angles are congruent, remember congruent just means equal. Okay, and that also goes for diagonals bisect each other. It means that the two sides are equal to each other. So whenever we see that property, we're going to create an equation where they're equal to each other. The third one says that consecutive angles are supplementary, which means the angles on the side of the triangle are going to add up to 180. So this third property, we're going to add the two things together, and then it equals 180. So those are the four properties that we're going to use when solving equations. Now, if you look down at the problems below, you'll see number 1. There's also some examples up there, example 1 and example 2, that you should check out because they show you all the work in how to solve this. But for each of these, you're solving for x and y. And again, they highlight the various properties. So in this one, I'm dealing with opposite sides. So to solve this one, I'm going to say, well, 2x minus 12, or 2x minus 2 equals 12. So I'm going to solve that one by adding 2 to both sides. And then dividing by 2, so x is 7. I can then solve for y and do 2y equals 8, and I'll divide by 2. I get y equals 4. So opposite sides, again, you're just setting them equal to each other. Problem number 2 deals with those opposite angles. So what you have to notice is the 11x and the 55 are opposite of each other. So I'm going to say 11x equals 55. So I'm going to divide by 11, x equals 5. And if you're ever worried about your answer, plug back in. What's 11 times 5? 55. Are these two things equal? Yeah. So the trick is to solve for y here. Now, y and 55 are not opposite, they're consecutive, or on the same side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 5y plus 55 equals 180. So then I'm going to draw my line because I always draw it. Subtract 55 from both sides. I get 5y equals 125. And then I'm going to divide by 5, and I got y is 25. So I can always use that consecutive angle and set it equal to 180. Problem number 3 deals with diagonals. So again, diagonals bisect each other. Just means that the two parts are equal to each other. So 3x equals 12 and 4y equals 8. So I can just divide by 3. X is 4. Y is 2. So that's how I solve for x. Now, remember, there's some challenge problems down there. And sometimes when you have to solve to find the y, you have to plug the x back in. And that comes up in a further example. So it's harder when you're dealing with something like question 6. Now, again, we're dealing with angles. So we know that opposite angles are congruent and consecutive angles are supplementary. But if you look, I'm dealing with x's that are opposite of each other. That means they're equal. So I'm just going to say 2x plus 12 equals 3x minus 18. Now I'm going to solve. The first thing I do is I combine my x's. So I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides, 2x on both sides. I'm going to be left with 12 equals x, or 1x, minus 18. Then I'm going to add 18 on both sides. And x equals 30. Now I've solved for x pretty easy. The trick is solving for the y and the z. Now the trick is x isn't actually the degree here. X is just the variable that I'm going to plug in. So that's the trick with this, is I have to plug this in. So now I'm going to take this 2x plus 12, and instead of x, now I'm going to put 30. So 2 times 30 plus 12, well, 2 times 30 is 60, plus 12 is 72. That is that angle right here. That is 72 degrees. Should be the same over here. So 3 times 30 minus 18. That's 90 minus 18. That's 72. Okay, so that's that angle. Well, how do I solve for those? Well, I can set up an equation. It says 3z plus 72 equals 180. Solve it that way. I would subtract 72 on both sides. I would get 3z equals 108. When I divide by 3, I would get z is 36. I could also do it another way, where if I know this is 72, I can say, well, I know these two are going to add up to 180. I can do 180 minus 72, roughly what I did here. I get that is 108, and then take that and set that, so I would say 4y equals 108. When I divide by 4, I would get 27. So there are two different ways of doing it, but for question 6 I have to take my previous answer and then plug it back in. You should be good to go on all the practice problems. Please just make sure that you write down any questions and you try everything. Again, make sure you write out everything so I know what you're thinking. And I will see you guys on Wednesday.